Back in 2013 on my old channel, I uploaded this mid-1980s footage from former Czechoslovakia documenting their border patrol and service dogs. I'm reposting it now in a trimmed version because the original upload contained a lot of material that wasn't particularly dog related. For this version, I've added an English voiceover. The goal was to simplify things as much as possible because subtitles tend to get in the way, especially with footage from the old tape era, which already comes with limited image quality. I also replaced the original background music. The original track was very early 80s, and frankly, it drove me nuts. There's a reason I started posting old footage of DDR patrol dogs and now Czech dogs as well. These dogs developed a massive reputation, nurtured and shaped by the former Eastern Bloc, which I myself grew up in. While footage like this doesn't show spectacular bite work or adrenaline-driven action, especially compared to what we're used to consuming today, it does show, at least visually and contextually, the service German Shepherds of the 1980s. Pay attention to the difference in structure and build. Notice the straighter backs and the lack of exaggerated elegance. That alone had a huge influence on how these dogs were later bred after the Eastern Bloc collapsed. Also notice that you're not looking at highly prey-driven dogs screaming at a sleeve. I've mentioned this many times before. The dogs I grew up seeing on the streets with soldiers or militia patrols were exactly like this. Straight back, black and tan, calm, composed, and unassuming until they weren't. When needed, they became serious weapons. Were all of them great? Of course not. You always had a percentage of solid working dogs, a smaller group of average dogs, often better suited for tracking, and a very small number that truly earned the reputation of men stoppers. Now, this part is important. Please do not assume that modern dogs from well-known breeding stations represent what these service dogs actually were. That assumption is exactly how so much nonsense ended up being marketed, to the point where people made a lot of money selling the myth of heroic border patrol dogs. I won't name kennels or individual dogs for obvious reasons, but understand this. Many highly promoted Czech dogs from the 1990s and into the 2000s had serious issues, both health-wise and temperament-wise. Online, we only ever get to see highlights. The reality, in many cases, was bad or sad or downright stupid. Pick whichever word fits best. The over-promoted modern Czech dog has very little to do with the dogs you see in footage like this. If you have an eye for it, the difference should be obvious. I'm not attacking the service dogs of former East Germany or former Czechoslovakia. I'm simply saying that there are different camps, different realities, and you should be extremely analytical if you find yourself specifically seeking a DDR bloodline dog or a Czech dog. Context matters, history matters, and footage like this helps remind us of that.
Here in the primeval forest, they say a kilometer measures 1,500 meters. Getting lost is no great art. Those who wish may even see fairy tale creatures. The whole of Šumava and the area of the Czech forest are the solid ramparts of the Czech land. From ancient times, man has belonged among them as its guardian, together with his loyal helper and friend. Before these four-legged rascals become adults, they must go through school like every youngster. And first of all, they must learn to obey. At the breeding station, there are experts for that. it is not easy to raise a reliable service dog from a small puppy. It requires patience supported by many years of experience. Obedience and physical fitness are interconnected vessels. Both are prerequisites for further training, for example in tracking or defense. Success is determined primarily by the handler's relationship with his dog. This is not an ordinary border alert. How many of these are there in a year? The border guard stopped counting them long ago. Speed, multiplied by the mechanization of every movement and every activity, precise knowledge of tasks in the assigned sector. In one word, readiness. A border operation. No one knows how long it will last. The answer to the question of when the border guards will return to the letter they were writing home, to a game of chess, to a television broadcast, or simply to well-deserved rest in their bed after duty, will be known at the moment the intruder is apprehended. The borders of the countries of the socialist community measure tens of thousands of kilometers. Even today, there is no peace along them. At the westernmost tip of our republic, at the border guard unit at Trojmizi, there is a signpost symbolizing the international fraternity of our and Soviet border guards. From their sector on Ratmanov Island, it is less than 5 kilometers to the American shores of Alaska. The western border of our republic is the border of the world of socialism. The international and patriotic task of its protection is reliably fulfilled by Czechoslovak border guards under the leadership of our Communist Party, in the interest of the working people of the Czechoslovak Socialist Republic. Our western state border. In today's class-divided world, it is the border of the entire socialist community. It is a sensitive nerve. It was not, and is not, wise to touch it. We live in an uneasy time of a class-divided world. The war policy of imperialism, despite the peace efforts of the Soviet Union and other socialist states, constantly threatens. The countries of the socialist community must adopt such measures as to ensure their security. One of them is the reliable protection of state borders. For service at the border, under the law on the protection of state borders, selected members of the working people are called up. Czechoslovakia may not occupy many meridians and parallels in area, but apart from the sea and the jungle, it has quite diverse natural conditions, especially in the border regions. The boys from this patrol will remember that southern Moravia is not only vast sunlit plains. How many generations have already taken turns in the ranks of the guards of our borders, from the ancient Chads to today's border guard? Why is it that our country has always needed them? We would find the answer in history, and the people of this land were not well off when the guards had to abandon its borders. Not because they are afraid, but as loyal and indispensable helpers, the border guards have dogs. Their training is a joy to watch, and one cannot help thinking, if only our own children would obey us like this. They say that a dog is man's best friend. What was the name of your best friend? His name was Brek. And when did you first walk with him along the state border? That was in 1952. Do you remember any experience? Yes, I do, when he saved my life. It was in cooperation with members of the National Security Corps, when we were pursuing two dangerous criminals who were hiding in a rugged area in the Breklav region. To determine whether they were in this area, I sent the dog Brek to reconnoiter the terrain. When we found out that these people were not hiding in the bunker where they were supposed to be, I moved about 500 meters away and began examining the tracks. All of a sudden, Brek tensed up, and about 20 meters in front of me I saw two men. Of course, I did not know they were the ones. I called on them to stop, and instead of stopping, they began shooting at me with a pistol. I threw myself to the ground. Brek lay down beside me. I probably pretended to be dead, as if I had been hit. They apparently took it that way and fled. I pursued them, and at one moment, when they disappeared from sight, I sent Brek after them. It turned out that when Brek clamped onto one of them by the arm, the other rushed in and shot him in the neck, the bullet exiting between his shoulder blades. I continued the pursuit, and when I closed in on them to about 20 meters, imagine this. Even though Brek was wounded, at the moment one of the intruders aimed a weapon at me. He sprang from beside my leg without any command, jumped at him, and tore the pistol from his hand. That practically ended the entire operation, and the intruders were neutralized. The then senior officer Yaroslav Kuchas was awarded a decoration for bravery by the President of the Republic. Brek recovered from his injuries, and surrounded by every possible care, lived for several more years. man and dog. About the relationship between them, border guards could tell entire novels. And also about sad farewells, even after only a 2-year friendship.
We're talking about 1980s Czechoslovakia, so the historical and political context matters. Very often the so-called bad guys were not criminals in the traditional sense, but ordinary people trying to escape to what they believed would be a better life in the West.
As the world changes, life on the borders changes as well. People change too, and so do the reasons for which they try to flee from their conscience, their duties, or even the law. In the Museum of the National Security Corps and the troops of the Ministry of the Interior in Prague, at Karlov, there is a fairly extensive exhibition that provides an overview of the development of the situation on the state borders from the end of the Second World War to the present day.